Hi everybody. Thanks for joining me. I am in a different spot of my house today because I'm chasing the sun, and right now, even though it wasn't even supposed to be sunny today, I'm looking out on a yard full of snow. Maybe I'll insert a shot. And it's sunny here in this family room type room. This is where these bookcases are on either side of a fireplace. And the kitchen is right behind me. And this room in here is, among other things, an exercise room, and that is a pile of Suki's toys that we use to throw, and she jumps, and we call it her Olympic training. So she's upstairs napping. I thought before I go back to the library, which is where I have some holds, I would catch you up on the Hong Kong book that I had finished, my very first one, and the Daphne du Maurier that I talked about a couple of weeks ago, before I return these books to the library and forget what I've read. And I folded a page of this library book, which I can't believe I did, but I didn't have anything to put in it, and I really wanted to mark the page. And then I have a couple sticky notes. So this book of Hong Kong's was written, it was shortlisted for the Man Booker, I think it was 2018. It's right here, it's describing it as haunting lyrical meditation on the color white, and a fictional journey inspired by an older sister who died in her mother's arms only a few hours old. The narrator is on a writer's residence in snowy Warsaw. And the thoughts, the vignettes of this narrator are just a page front and back long most of the time. And there are titles to the pages, to the vignettes: The Direction of the Light, Perpetual Snow, Snow, Fog, Door. So what I noticed was that there would be what I noticed about these vignettes was that there would be a physical, tangible thing that the narrator was describing. And then the second paragraph would be like a metaphor. So she would be describing maybe a walk through the city, and she sees iron railings and is describing those in a poetic manner, but then goes on to say, and as if they were, so it's more of like a metaphor. And that was the loose framework. This is a short one. It's called Handkerchief. She saw it one afternoon in late summer as she was walking past a secluded tenement building. A woman on the second floor was hanging her washing out over the balcony rail, while a handful of items slipped from her grasp. A single handkerchief drifted down, slowest of all, finally to the ground, like a bird with its wings half furled, like a soul tentatively sounding out a place it might alight. So that was really on the nose in terms of describing something and then the metaphor, and not all of the passages are like that. They become more nuanced as the book goes on. And those vignettes, those descriptive vignettes about things that she's seeing or feelings of hers present day, then start to lean more towards thoughts of her mother's experience, and what it must have been like to give birth to the narrator's, what would have been her older sister. and what happened only hours after the fact that the baby didn't live. And then she talks a little bit about the older sister she never had. And so that was interesting. I read this like a couple of pages or a handful of pages at a time in the morning as I would a book of poetry, that I don't think it would have been successful or even enjoyable to read all at once, because it's not it's not a traditional story. It's more, I would call it prose pieces. Although I know very little about what prose is in comparison to poetry, but I think this might describe that. So I know this is different than her other writings, which are pieces of like a traditional story. But I'm really glad that I started here, and I'm going to continue. I will certainly, her new book, whose name I'm forgetting, is on my list in my brain for when it comes out. I think it's out in February. My library has it on hold, and I've put a hold on the book that they have on order. So yeah, that was that. Then, okay, so last January, I read Rebecca, the Daphne du Maurier classic. And I really liked it. It was gothic feeling to me, which is not my favorite type of story to read. I feel like I liked O Caledonia, which was written many decades later by Elspeth Barker. That type of gothic I liked better because it was more modern, I guess, even though it's got a very timeless Victorian feel to it. So I wasn't sure about My Cousin Rachel, and who is the booktuber that I just said talked about this? If I remember, I will put it here or in the notes. Somebody might have had this on their best of 2024. And even though this book has a movie cover, I just grabbed the one that they had at the library. This book was published like in the 1950s, many years after Rebecca. And I'll tell you why I love this book much better than Rebecca. With Rebecca, the character Rebecca was a young woman, and the story has to do with her. I completely forget the story, by the way, except that she eventually makes it to the house of an older man, and then things ensue. So I remember the part about the house and the man, but I don't remember how she gets there. And Rebecca feels like she's young and naive. This female character, Rachel, is not young in the standard of the day. She's in her 30s, for God's sake. 35, which is kind of over the hill in this time. And so she is mature. She has been through some things. She has been married not once, but twice, we find out. She's worldly. She's lived in Italy, not just the UK. And she is not naive. That's what I like about this story more than Rebecca. And I love how the same author wrote both. I think this was done, I'm forgetting the years now, but I'll put here when Rebecca was published and when this book was published. Published in 1951. Rachel is a chimera. This is what the introduction says. Chimera. Rather sinister, as the author wrote of her, and you'll never really know whether the woman is an angel or a devil. She and the book are shrouded in ambiguity. When is it set? Exactly where? How old is she? What really went on in Italy and with whom? Rachel wears a perpetual Mona Lisa smile. This is what the introduction. A post-Freudian heroine parachuted by her besotted author into a sort of Cornish Mansfield Park, alive to and unashamed of her sexuality, as exotic as a glass of iced Prosecco, as sweet as panettone, as dangerous as a stiletto. I am sure Daphne du Maurier, like her readers, absolutely fell for Rachel, choosing to write the book in the first person through the dewy, ever-widening eyes of her boy protagonist, poor Philip, the confused and wet-nosed puppy. We can feel du Maurier's addiction start to grow. All of that. I haven't read a page turner, something that is going to make me read beyond my desire to read anymore before bed when I'm getting tired. I rarely do that. I found myself turning the pages and reading faster and faster, and then finally saying, no, I'm going to save the next thing for the next day. And then it turns again, and you're trying to figure it out, and you think you haven't figured it out. It was such a fun way to start the year. It's not my first book of the year. My first book of the year was a real hit. It was Confusion by Stefan Zweig. This was too. I'm not going to say very much about the plot. It's not a confusing thing to drop into. So I just say, try it, enjoy it. If you liked Rebecca, which I did, I loved this. It feels like, here's Daphne du Maurier, 20 years later, whatever it is, and she's a different person. She can write a different kind of character. She's that much older. And I think I had also mentioned in my other video that I was going to reread the other Virginia Woolf that I had already read. I reread Mrs. Dalloway, and I had read To the Lighthouse and loved it. I reread Mrs. Dalloway, adored it. And I remember really liking this book, her first published novel called The Voyage Out, which I think, I'm looking at my 1980s copy from the Carnegie Library. It says The Voyage Out, published in 1915. What's interesting is that there were four books published after this one before Mrs. Dalloway. It's like a 10-year gap. Really interesting. Mrs. Dalloway appears in the story. It's a story of a voyage, and we are with the young Rachel, who is a niece of other people on the boat. I think they are the Ambroses, and lots of people on the boat, very chaotic group of people. I don't recall it being as chaotic as it is, but it's settling down now, and they're on their way to South America. And they've picked up Mr. and Mrs. Dalloway, who were stranded in Lisbon, I think. For one reason or another, their mode of transportation fell through. I don't remember. But yeah, I don't know. I thought I was like captivated in the beginning, and I'm not captivated right now. But it's interesting, and I love this edition. I think it's absolutely beautiful. Really cool book cover design by Harcourt Brace Janovich Publishers. All right, so what's up for me? I have a lot of books coming that are on hold, were on hold at the library. 3 Iris Murdochs, because I said I wanted to dip into Iris Murdoch, but I didn't remember which book I had read, or books I had read in the 90s that I really loved. So I've got 3 different ones coming. I'm just gonna dip into them and see. from the library. I will share all with you when they arrive. Oh, something just came. Speaking of books, something just came that I had ordered from FedEx. I didn't realize this was going to be a hardcover. But is that what? It's the Exercise Professional's Guide to Personal Training from the American Council on Exercise, called ACE. I didn't realize it was going to be a hardback. Many of you may be aware, or if you're not, I will fill you in, that I retired early, end of last year. So it's been a year since I retired, and changing gears. I was a risk and insurance professional for most of my career in corporate America, and I'm wanting to engage in things that I really love, and one of the things that I really love is physical activity of all different sorts. I would be thrilled to help other people start a journey like that, or expand a journey, or put together a plan, because it just takes time and effort to do that when you're busy. And I also don't want people to feel intimidated if they care to go to a gym or try to put something together at home. So I already have my group fitness certification that I got a few months ago. And this was just then the natural progression to start working with people individually. That's all I have for you right now. I love the comments, the engagement that I had on that last video. I took your recommendations. I've added them to the whiteboard. I'll talk more about that in the next video. I want to talk a little bit about some new releases, or republication, some backlisted stuff that's coming that hasn't been translated before, that's going to be translated for the first time. All that stuff I'll be talking about on my next video. But for now, just a short one. I wanted to update you on the books I had just talked about. I hope you can find some sun if you are in the Western Hemisphere and you're in winter right now. I hope you can find just a patch of sun sometimes to be in, if it's super cold where you are, and a lot of the time gray. Thanks for tuning in again. I really appreciate all of you being here, and I hope to see you on the next one.